Hiring sales talent is never the real risk. Mismanaging ramp time is. In this episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, Sean O'Shaughnessy and Kevin Lawson are joined by fractional VP of Sales Shannon Muniz to unpack how leaders can balance patience, urgency, and accountability without undermining revenue. They break down why proven sales skills matter more than industry jargon, and how smart onboarding, through messaging, ride-alongs, and real-world exposure, accelerates sales success. If you're serious about building a sales team that produces results without burning cash or confidence, this conversation will sharpen how you lead.
Welcome back to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, and we are really lucky. Kevin and I are being joined by just a wonderful seller, wonderful sales leader in Orlando, Florida. Shannon Muniz is with us. Shannon has been a fractional VP of sales for 6 years now. So she has a lot of experience, lots of customers, lots of challenges of making companies better, making sales with people better, making sales owners better. So we're really blessed to have Shannon with us. And we were talking a little bit before we started here, talking about the topics that we were going to talk about. One of the topics that came up was, how do we let salespeople and sales directors grow into their jobs with enough patience that they actually can get there, but not so much patience that it actually ruins the profitability of the company? So this is a challenge that everybody has when they're growing new sales teams and trying to bring on new hires. Like, how do you get them up to speed fast enough that they can be contributing members to the society, but also give them enough patience that they don't feel like they have the sort of certificates that's going to come down and cut their head off because they didn't sell something after the first 3 weeks. So Shannon, welcome to the podcast. We really enjoy having you here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. And that's a great topic. I actually recently had a case where I hired a director of sales for one of my clients. I was in a fractional VP of sales role and had built the team, and it was time to bring in a new sales leader. And we went through the process, got the recruiter, significant investment really on the business owner's part, because there's a lot of interviews that go into that and a lot of consideration. And we were very fortunate because we found a great sales leader and brought him on board. And he was just checking every box that I typically look for in a director of sales. Not only did he have outstanding experience, both in the sales realm, but also on the management side, he had a great experience at coaching people and at understanding processes and implementing processes and really everything that you look for, far above the other candidates that we had interviewed. And within the first month, I sat down with the owner and said, how are things going? How are you feeling about this new sales leader that we've brought in? And I was caught off guard because she said, I don't feel that he knows the terminology well enough. He's from a different industry and he hasn't picked this up quickly enough. And I'm questioning if he was the right hire. And that caught me off guard because having hired countless 10s, 20, 30 directors of sales in my career, this is a rock star. And I too had noticed that he didn't have all the same terminology as a lot of the sales team. But I understand that he needs a bit of runway to be able to learn the messaging of the company, understand their value proposition, how they're presenting themselves, and you have to give him that space. So in talking with the owner, I said, let me come up with a plan. First of all, I'll talk with him about it directly. The owner felt awkward with the situation and said, I don't know. I know that he's good, but this is throwing things off. He's not using the right terminology. And so I spoke with him about it. He was very appreciative to be able to have the opportunity to improve that. And I said, listen, it's not just going to improve for you in this job, but this will make you a better rounded sales leader overall. So this is an improvement for your career. And we were able to put together a plan for him to be able to work on quickly getting up to speed with the lingo in that specific industry. In order to do that, we came up with a plan that included him attending some local trade shows that were going on, walking the floor, talking to some of the competitors and the vendors that were there so that he got really comfortable and familiar with the terms they were using and how they were using them, and could feel by the end of those shows that he was really starting to speak their language. We also implemented a higher requirement of ride-alongs with the sales team than we normally would, because that gave him an opportunity to see the sales team in their element, talking about the company, talking about the industry, talking about the products, and allowed him to absorb through them exactly what the messaging should look like and how that presentation should be made when you're talking to a client. We took another month or so of implementing those strategies to get him really familiar with the terminology, and it seemed to work really well. I would say that it's still a work in progress, but I think that the owner is coming around to feeling better about it. It was a concern for me because knowing how difficult it is to find a good director of sales, I hated to see an owner get uncomfortable with the good sales leader they had hired so quickly.
It's interesting to me, and what I heard from you through that description is you have the heart of a teacher. That servant leadership kind of heart for helping people on their journey. Because the three of us know that hiring a rock star is like hiring a unicorn. It's really difficult to find that level of labeling for rock star. You can find warm bodies a lot, but hiring a rock star is really rare air. So congratulations on being able to source that kind of candidate. I'm sure somebody would love to know how you did that as well, because that's a playbook unto of itself. But really, how do you encourage the ownership of companies? Like, small business owners really need results fast. They don't have time and cash just to burn. So how do you encourage, on the ownership side, professional patience, but on the new person, the new team member side, urgency, and counterbalance those? Because that's a real challenge that we all face. So I'm curious about how you do it, because I think our audience would love to hear how you do it.
Absolutely. I hadn't had this situation come up before with a sales leader, but I see it frequently with salespeople where a business owner will hire a new sales rep and bring them on board. And they don't, at the end of the first quarter, they're upset because the new salesperson hasn't hit their number for the quarter, and the sales cycle is 6 months. So it's like this person hasn't even had a chance yet. So it's a really important discussion to have with a business owner about what is a realistic runway for a sales leader and for a salesperson. They're different, obviously, but depending on the individual, it's really important to come up with a plan so that it makes sense on both sides. It's realistically giving the new hire a fair amount of time to learn the business, learn the terminology, learn who the customers are, and be able to start to put that into practice. But at the same time, set a realistic expectation for the owner as to how long that should take. And at what point, if they aren't seeing results, that they need to consider, does this person need additional training, or perhaps is this not the right hire?
I think this is a really important topic, and I'm going to take it at a little bit higher level for just a second because I'd love your feedback on this. So many times I see owners say, I can't find somebody that knows my industry, just like this person that you had just hired didn't know the industry or wasn't that familiar with it. So I only want to hire from people who know my industry, which basically means I'm hiring from my competitors, or I'm hiring internally from somebody that they ran the call center or they ran the manufacturing operation or whatever kind of business it is. So they know the lingo, they know the company, but they've never sold. So I've always been of the opinion, and this is actually my question for you, Shannon. I've always been of the opinion that it's harder to teach really good sales skills, and it takes longer to get better at that than it is to teach them about an industry. So my advice to clients has always been hire the best salesperson we can possibly find, because teaching that sales skills, teaching those things are harder to do. But maybe you're a different type of a manager than I am. So maybe you have better success at doing that than I do. So I'd like to hear your opinions on that.
Yeah, I actually agree with you, Sean. I think that it's much harder. In fact, I'm not always sure that you can teach someone to sell, because a lot of people just don't fit the sales mold. So to hire someone from another department and put them in sales, if they've never sold before, is a huge risk. To bring somebody in that has the proven ability to sell and teach them your industry is much easier and much less risky than to bring somebody in that may know your industry and try to teach them to sell. Selling is an innate skill. Either you can do it and you like doing it, or it's not for you. And sometimes people don't know and they think maybe they could do it. That's usually not a great sign. Usually people know if they can sell, if they're persuasive, if they're able to have good conversations with people. And you feel that when you interview people. And if you know somebody, if they have those natural communication skills and good sales skills that you need in a sales position. So to be able to hire somebody from another industry that is a proven successful salesperson, is much less risky. All you have to do at that point is teach them your business. And teaching them your business is something that you probably do every time you bring in a new hire anyway, regardless of whether they're in accounting or they're in operations. There's a whole learning process that goes on about the business. And yes, it may be more detailed in sales and may have a little bit different spin on it because of the messaging you want them to have. But those are all documentable, teachable things. Having sales skills, not so much.
Interesting. And I think that that's a key takeaway. So for anybody listening to this, rewind that moment and listen to the how we get to hiring well starts with characteristics and skills and proven past proof, not hope and promotion from necessarily other departments as a risk management. Think about your last 10 hires, and it probably doesn't stop for just sales. So that's a great takeaway for all listeners, for all parts of their growth model and how they're leaning into scaling their businesses. Are they hiring well? Are they hiring for potential, or are they hiring for production? Or hiring for potential? People hire us to form those potential growth moments. So, well, Shannon, like all things, this is a fast process. And in not too long of a time, we have covered everything from finding a person that you helped, meaning a CEO that you helped, finding a candidate to replace you now that you've built the thing that's going to help them scale, and then even doing some follow-up coaching with them so they get the best and highest use of that new hire in terms of value for their business. I have a hunch, and this is in my heart of hearts, that as the teaching coach and fractional VP that you are, people might want to know more, might want to talk about how you actually did it at a tactical level, maybe on a one-off kind of discussion. How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, I'd be happy to talk to anybody about, how to make sure that they're setting their new hires up for success and being realistic about how much time to give them before they should be producing as expected. They can reach out to me, and my email is smuniz, SMUNIZ, at salesacceleration.com.
You're on LinkedIn a lot. I know I see you quite often on LinkedIn. We'll put your LinkedIn profile out there on the show notes as well for anybody that wants to do it. But this has been great. This has been a really wonderful opportunity. Are there any businesses that you like to specialize in so that if people, especially in the Central Florida area, if they want to reach out to you, any types of businesses that you like to specialize in?
I work with all different types of businesses. My background is in technology. I was part owner of a tech company back in 2011 to 2016, and we exited that in 2016. But since then, I have worked with so many different types of companies, from tech companies, of course, but dock builders and insurance companies and residential elevator companies, and you name it. I love the challenge of learning a new business. That's something that drives me, along with being a fixer and being able to help people. So I'm really not limited, just like in our conversation. I'm not limited by the industry. I am a pretty quick study. And so I learn what I need to make sure I make the client successful.
Because it's all about following a sales process, developing that sales process, developing good messaging, and asking good open-ended questions. It's like that is the one skill that salespeople that is universal. If you ask good open-ended questions, that means you're going to have good conversations and you're going to learn something about your customer, and you're potentially going to close the deal. But this has been fantastic. Thank you for joining us on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales.
Thanks for having me.
And for everybody else out there in listener land, reach out to Shannon if you have questions. She's a wealth of information, 6 years of experience of doing this. And so please reach out to her. But thank you very much. And we will see everybody next Tuesday at 4:30.
What a strong episode. Practical, honest, and packed with real-world insight for anyone leading or building a sales team. One of the biggest takeaways was the discussion of ramp time and profitability, and how easily great hires can be derailed when leaders mistake early discomfort for poor performance. Hearing how intentional onboarding, through ride-alongs, immersion in customer conversations, and exposure to industry language, can accelerate confidence without sacrificing results was a powerful reminder that, when structured correctly, patience is a leadership advantage. Equally important was the actionable lesson of creating a clear 30 to 60-day ramp plan that defines progress before revenue is recognized. That step matters because it aligns expectations, protects cash flow decisions, and keeps good people from being judged too early. Something every busy leader needs to address now, before the next hire walks through the door. If you ever need help sharpening your sales strategy, improving sales management, or simply growing your company with more predictability, reach out to Sean or Kevin. Their contact details are waiting for you in the show notes. And if you want ongoing support, peer insight, and practical resources to help you hit quota, be sure to check out the B2B Sales Lab, a community built for salespeople and sales leaders who want real answers, not theory. You'll find the B2B Sales Lab link in the show notes as well. We'll be back with you again next week with another conversation designed to make you better at what you do. Happy selling.